This month, I've been getting the same question over and over and over again, and that question is, hey Sean, since you're a national master, you probably know what the best opening in chess is in order to help me get a very good rating. And so today I'll be answering that question and more coming straight up. So the best opening in chess. Now, if you were to go into the Game Explorer, you'll probably see that e4 is the most played opening for white, and c5 is the most popular defense. So let me ask you, do you think this is then the best opening for white and best opening for black, as these are the openings most played by the top level players? And if you answered yes to this question, the answer would be most definitely not. These are not the best openings. E4, C5, they're good openings, and they're strong if you know how to play them right, but just because they're mostly played at the top level doesn't mean that they're the best opening for you. And so when we answer this question, what is the best opening, you really have to determine what do you mean by best? And this is where a lot of confusion comes into play. Now, if you want to get to the tip top of the GM level, you want to become the next Magnus Carlsen, then of course there are some openings that will give you a small advantage as white or black against your opponent, especially if they don't know what they're doing. And those openings, just off the top of my head from what I can remember, is that the Sicilian Najdorf is extremely strong. Then Rai Lopez is extremely strong for white. The London System, something Magnus Carlsen's been playing quite lately. And all these openings are quite popular compared to some other openings that are kind of suboptimal. My favorite Philidor defense, the Caro-Kann, the French defense, the Perk. Though these openings aren't played at the top level because they've been quote unquote refuted, these openings are completely fine for you to play if you're under that tip top of the Grandmaster levels. Even if you're just barely a GM, like a 2500 rate GM, you still see a lot of people playing these openings because they're not bad by any means. They're just not played because if you're a super strong player who's memorized 20,000 lines in each variation, well, of course your opponent can get a small advantage, and they're going to get very comfortable in these positions. So for me, what do I think is the best opening for you if you want to improve in chess? That answer is basically any opening. I want you guys to basically get this notion of what is the best opening in chess out of your brains right now, because there's no such thing. E4, if you play E4, that could be a good opening. If you play pawn F4, if you learn this, even this opening can be a good opening. If you play D4, play C4, play pawn B3. In fact, a funny story is, as I was climbing in chess before I even got to National Master, one of my most popular openings was pawn A3 because I didn't have much time to study, so I just learned all my black openings, like the Duress Gambit, the Najdorf defense. I just played these openings basically with white, except with one tempo up. Because one thing I wanted to tell you guys that's super important is that your opponents aren't very good. My opponents aren't very good. I've never played very good opponents in my life. Even the best players I played, like international masters, GMs, FMs, right? They're not at the top of the level. They're not Magnus Carlsen. They're not Bobby Fischer, not Gary Kasparov. You could play pawn a3 and find great success, as long as you know what you're doing. And so again, what I recommend you guys do, everybody, is basically find an opening that you particularly enjoy yourself, and one that you think yourself can help make your rating rise up. Now for me, when I first started playing chess, one of the openings I enjoyed myself was this opening called the Dragon Defense. And the reason why I enjoyed this opening is because it had a very cool name, and basically I got a very cool bishop over here. But as I climbed and climbed and climbed, I realized a lot of my opponents knew what to do against this opening because it was very popular back in the day. And a lot of people just went for this Yugoslav attack. And I realized so many people knew what to do against this. And so therefore, I couldn't really gain advantages in the opening. And so I couldn't really basically cheese or just win games quite early because everybody knew what to do. So I thought to myself, hey, why play openings that my opponents know very well? Why play e5 after e4? Why play Sicilian defense? And so what I started playing, that's where I found the love of my life, the opening to pawn d6. I saw one of my opponents play this once in a tournament before, and they crushed their opponents because they didn't know what to do. And since then, I just started studying this opening. I practiced this opening over and over and over again, and I became super super well versed when it came to this opening, and none of my opponents, even FMs, even international masters that I played with this opening, don't quite know what to do against this. And sure, is there refutation? If you're Leela, if you're Stockfish, if you're Komodo, yeah, you're gonna destroy me playing as white over here. You're gonna get that 0.1 advantage and squeeze it out to a win. But your opponents aren't like that. And so if they're spending time in the opening trying to figure out what in the world's happening because they haven't seen this before, that's more time you have in your clock for you to gain advantage. And so for black, I figured out d6 is the best opening for me. It's simple, it's easy to understand, and not many people know. And for me, those are the three factors I find most important when choosing an opening that you enjoy. Something easy to understand, and something that's not too common. Now, of course, it has to be viable as well. You don't want to be playing pawn f5, because this is called the Duress Gambit, and of course, this is a garbage opening. Though I have played this in blitz games and found relatively great success because I knew the lines. But again, if you're playing an opening in which basically white can get a 0.5 advantage from the opening as black, that's completely fine. That's just a normal opening. And for white, even if you can get into a position in which the most optimal play, black just gets an equal position, those are fine openings as well, because nobody knows what to do. And for example, one final example I want to give you guys is after I played Sicilian defense a billion times, what I realized is that I hated playing pawn d4 because everybody knew what to do. I mean, if you're a knight orb player, you go into knight up. If you're a Taimanov player, you go into that. If you're a Sveshnikov player, you go into that. And there's so many variations for you to memorize. And so what I realized and what I found great success with in the past is basically after d6 or knight c6 or whatever, I just play pawn c3, and this is called the delayed Alpin. You guys have probably seen me play this before, and the idea is quite simple. If my opponent doesn't know what to do, if they play knight c6, I just play pawn d4, gain massive space in the center. And even if they play a move like knight f6, we can play some tricky stuff like bishop e2 with the idea of if they capture here, I just check over here. And even if they just play normally over here, and never take on e4, I get bishop f1, and my d4 move is still coming in very quickly. And so let's say they play knight c6, I play pawn d4. I've gone in this position maybe 1,000 times in my chess games, and every time I've never lost in a game like this. And so after a move like pawn e6, even though pawn e6 looks like a normal Sicilian move, this is actually a huge mistake. And the reason why is because white basically wants to attack on the queen side, which is where black thinks he wants to attack here, because that's what all Sicilian players do, but he doesn't realize that since this position is a little bit different, I know this position better than my opponent, I can always gain great advantages because they don't know what they're doing. And already in this position, after a move like pawn a4, let's say they play, I don't know, bishop d7 and knight c3, white already has a huge advantage. I've won many games like this in these positions. So again, just to sum it up, what is the best opening in chess? There is really no best opening in chess unless you're at the top level. And if you want to improve in chess, find an opening that's right for you, practice them all. You probably heard of the Caro-Kann. That's a good opening if you know what you're doing. French defense, that's a good opening if you know what you're doing. Any opening is good if you know what you're doing. So learn the opening, try it out, see if you like it. And if you do, well, that can be the opening for you and the best opening for you. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know today's was a rather abstract one, but I hope to see you guys in the next video. See you guys!